Hello. How's it going? This is Mavidat again. I wanted to respond to your latest post that I finally approved. Yes, I finally approved. By the way, this is the only one of your videos that I'm approving, just to keep things fair. You can respond, of course, and protest. I'm sure you will. You see, my friend, you really waste a lot of time repeating yourself. And you also waste a lot of time telling me things that I already know. You see, I've been a Baha'i. I was a Baha'i for 22 years. You don't need to explain to me the basics of the Baha'i Faith. You can just pretty much assume that I know those things and refer to them. I know you're probably doing that for the benefit of the people that are watching from home, but it really does waste a lot of time. So that's one way you can save time. The other way that you could save time, I said, is by not repeating things. You repeated the Baha'i theology about suppressing sexual thoughts, like probably 5 times. I have on here that you repeated that at least 4 times, and you spent probably about 2/3 of your video or a half of your video on that. So first, what I'd like to do is take a look at. You see, a lot of your argument hinges on the supposition that the Baha'i laws, oh, they're only for the Baha'is. If you accept the Baha'i laws, then you have to obey them. But if you don't accept them, oh, that's okay. You know, you could do whatever you want, and it's fine. The Baha'i laws, they're just you just kind of you take them, you leave them, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry, that's not. First of all, that's dishonest of you to talk like that. There's absolutely nothing in the Baha'i writings that supports that type of language. That, oh, the Baha'i laws, they're only for Baha'is and not for anyone else. On the contrary, we find in the Baha'i writings repeatedly, all of humanity is obligated to recognize God's latest manifestation, who is said to be Baha'u'llah in this dispensation. The first line of the Kitab-i-Aqdas that you referred to doesn't have anything to do with what you referred to it. It says the first duty prescribed by God unto His servants is the recognition of the manifestation of God in this day. That's the first duty for humanity, to recognize the manifestation of God. So this whole thing about, oh, it's just if you're a Baha'i, doesn't work at all. And so much of your argument hinges on that. And I'm going to refer to the parts of your argument that do. Another quotation that refutes your idea that the laws are only for Baha'is is this, from a letter written on behalf of the Guardian. As regards the meaning of the Baha'i covenant, the Guardian considers the existence of 2 forms of covenant, both of which are explicitly mentioned in the literature of the cause. First is the covenant that every prophet makes with humanity, or, more definitely, with his people, that they will accept and follow the coming manifestation, who will be the reappearance of his reality. Now, I know you're going to say, oh, you see, it said it's only for his people, so since the people who say that they're not Baha'is are not his people, they don't have to follow the covenant. Wrong. If you look at some answered questions, Abdu'l-Baha asserts repeatedly that there has never been a civilization on earth that has been without a manifestation of God. Thus, all of humanity is under this covenant and bound by the duty to recognize Baha'u'llah. Sorry, your point about the laws being only for Baha'is fails. That's just my first objection to that. If you're right, my second objection is that if you're right, and that the laws are only for Baha'is, then the Baha'i Faith is completely arbitrary. It's a useless religion that you can either accept or deny. It doesn't actually help you at all if you do accept it, and if you don't accept it, that's fine too. But I know that's not what you believe. You believe that the Baha'i Faith is importantly necessary for the betterment of the world, and that's what we mean by morally necessary. And my third objection is that there's no sense to this whole, oh, it's just moral for me argument. That's just basically a cop-out. And it's a cop-out that allows you to assert several things dogmatically, basically, in your video. You just say them. This is what Baha'is believe. It's just Baha'i theology. I don't really know why it's true, but there it is. Here are the things that you assert dogmatically. First, you can't, or you ought not to act on the sexual impulse because the sexual impulse should be suppressed. You give us no reason for that. You just say that it somehow leads to spiritual growth. You still haven't told us what spiritual growth means. I'm sure it doesn't lead to happiness. I know that from personal experience. Sex before marriage is a great thing. Another thing that you assert dogmatically is that, oh, surrogate parents are immoral because Baha'i law says so. Why does it say so? You don't know why. The third one that you assert dogmatically is that the purpose of marriage is given by Baha'u'llah. Why? Why should we accept the purpose of marriage as given by Baha'u'llah? There's no reason. Now, having now dealt with your assertion that the Baha'i laws are only for Baha'is, I'd like to go to your denial of the fact that you're saying basically hate the sin and love the sinner. You are actually saying hate the sin and love the sinner. You keep distinguishing between love and sex. Love and sex are different parts of the brain. They have nothing to do with each other. So what you're saying is that the desire for the sex is something that should be repressed, and that the sex, the act, is immoral. So the people who just have the tendency for the act, the homosexuals, they're fine, they're okay as long as they don't act on that sexual impulse. That's exactly the division that I'm talking about. Hate the sin, love the sinner. You say that, oh, it's just part of Christian dogma, and it's not in Baha'i theology, because in Christian dogma, sin comes from demons. And also, it's not about love or hate. No one hates anyone. Both of these points are completely irrelevant. I said nothing about a demon, and also, you know what I mean by hate. I don't mean literally hate. I mean that you try to say that what you dislike or what you disapprove of is the act and not the homosexual who has the tendency. And your third point was that we need to eliminate all material impulses, both heterosexual and homosexual. Now, you're being a bit disingenuous here, because you don't actually believe that we need to eliminate the heterosexual impulse. You believe the heterosexual impulse is legitimate within the context of marriage. You very, very quickly gloss over that and make it seem as though, oh, it's all equal on both sides. The Baha'i attitude towards homosexuality is exactly the same as the Baha'i attitude towards heterosexuality, and then you very quickly gloss over the fact that, oh no, it's only in marriage that you're actually okay with Baha'is indulging their sexual impulses. So let's get to that. You say that the sexual desire is okay so long as it's contained, and the homosexual act is exactly the same as the heterosexual act outside marriage. I have three responses. First of all, notice the hypocrisy of this equivocation. You're trying to say that the homosexual act, which is not immoral, you still haven't given us a reason to think that it's immoral by itself, is exactly the same as the heterosexual act outside of marriage. Even if we agree that the heterosexual act outside of marriage is wrong, the correct inference would be that the homosexual act outside of marriage is wrong. Not that the homosexual act in general always is wrong. That doesn't make any sense at all. How are they exactly the same? And why the asymmetry there? Why the hypocrisy? My second objection is that you basically made the implicit assumption that homosexuality is wrong, and you still haven't backed that up. You still haven't given us a reason to think that it's wrong. The third is that they're not the same. The third objection is that they're not the same, the homosexual act and the heterosexual act in marriage. Moving on, you say that the Universal House of Justice quote doesn't justify not having children in marriage because, after the quote that I said, the Universal House of Justice goes on to say that the couple who chooses not to have children is opposing Baha'i law. But who cares? So what? Homosexuals don't choose not to have children. That's how they're born. They don't choose to not have children. They just can't have children. If what you're saying is true. Secondly, homosexual people in the future can have children. So your objection there falls. And also your whole thing about lesbians not being able to have children. Who cares about whether the sexual impulse is linked to their sexual their having children or not? There's absolutely no